p.m. The committee's next meeting will take place this Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we have not yet received information about next week's meetings from the whips. As soon as we have that information, we, of course, will be sending that out to all committee members directly. I will go over just a couple of the quick procedural and housekeeping matters. We will go to a full complement of questions using the 6-minute, 5-minute, 2.5-minute rule that we've established. That should give us adequate time to get all of the questions in, but we will be suspending, or at least excusing Minister Murray at 6 p.m. sharp, and then going on to a second full round of questions where the witnesses at that time. I would ask that if you are making a statement or asking a question, if you begin your statement or question in one official language, please continue in that language. I would ask that you do not alternate between French and English, because we have had over time some technical difficulties when we've switched between the two languages. And if we can do that, I think it would make for an easy facilitation and a much quicker meeting, because we won't have to worry about getting interrupted by our technicians. With that, colleagues, I think you all know the drill. And Madam Minister, it's good to see you once again. And the floor is yours for what I believe will be a 5-minute opening statement. Minister Murray, over to you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chair. Good to see everyone virtually. I'm pleased to appear before this committee from my home in the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples. And I'm joined today by Paul Glover, President of Shared Services Canada, Raj Thipal, SSC Senior Assistant Deputy Minister for Network Security and Digital, Mark Burriard, Acting Chief Information Officer of Canada, and Scott Jones, Head of the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. Mr. Chair and colleagues, as Minister of Digital Government, I'm leading the Government of Canada's digital transformation. And my mandate is to provide public servants with the tools they need and to deliver the digital services Canadians expect. This transformation is critical for the government to keep pace digitally, and as the pandemic has shown, it's more important than ever that we have secure, reliable, and easy to use digital services to make sure that no Canadian is left behind. It's been about 10 weeks since our government took the unprecedented step of asking federal employees to work from home. And to support this, the digital teams right across government stepped up their efforts to ensure the public service could continue working safely and effectively, because our government's first priority is to continue serving Canadians. I've been so impressed by the work Shared Services Canada, the Office of the Chief Information Officer, and the Canadian Digital Service have been doing to ramp up our digital capacities almost overnight. SSC has been working to maintain IT support for efficient and secure delivery of critical services as citizen needs escalate. And this, in addition to supporting an unprecedented increase in public servants teleworking from their homes. And I can't express enough the magnitude of this work, and thank all of the public servants who've been doing it. SSC expanded networks, boosted services, provided equipment and tools so employees were able to continue to deliver critical services while working from home. They also enabled Wi-Fi calling so that employees could call and receive calls where there's poor cell service. And they increased department's internet capacity, in some cases up to 300%. They nearly doubled government's secure remote access capacity, so we can currently have up to 270,000 simultaneous remote connections. SSC also tripled the ability of the CRA to manage the flood of Canadians applying for the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and the Emergency Student Benefit. The Canadian Digital Service has also been helping with digital responses right across government. They created a digital toolkit, helping departments recruit tech staff and access a library of open source code solutions and how to use them, helping citizens navigate the multiple benefits that are available, and sign up for secure notifications about COVID-19 from Health Canada and other ministries. The Office of the CIO has been working across government to provide guidance on COVID-19 IT challenges, making sure that the private sector offers of help are assessed and connected quickly with departments as well. To keep information safe, this office has helped all federal employees make telework more secure and provided best practices for using digital tools safely. Mr. Chair, disruption attracts cybersecurity challengers, and we're very aware that increased and new uses of digital tools carry the risk of malicious cyber activities. Cybersecurity is and will continue to be a high priority for our government as we safeguard Canadians from cyber threats. So let me assure this committee that we are constantly monitoring, detecting, and actively neutralizing cyber threats, and that we coordinate events effectively through Government of Canada's Cybersecurity Event Management Plan. Shared Services Canada has increased the overall security of the government through services such as perimeter defense, vulnerability management, supply chain integrity, and an integrated cyber and IT security program to protect the infrastructure supporting departments and agencies. To combat COVID-19 misinformation and fraud, the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity coordinated with industry partners to help remove thousands of fraudulent websites and email addresses that could have been used for malicious activity. So in conclusion, every crisis can be an opportunity to change for the better, and this pandemic is no different. In short order, we have seen a move towards collaboration across all orders of government and industry. We've adopted digital solutions to unprecedented challenges at unprecedented speed, and we're doing it safely. And I'd just like to thank all our public servants for their Herculean efforts in this digital response. So thank you. We'll be happy to now take your questions.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Mr. Obulte for 6 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, Minister, and I hope you're staying well with your family. There was a story came out showing the hundreds of thousands of credentials being hacked from Zoom, and there was a story also about Skype for some videos, actual videos being stolen for external analysis with the users, where the users were unaware. So the question is, we've been using Zoom all the way, plus other methods such as Skype too. So how are we protecting sensitive information from being hacked or being communicated over video chat, and how we are making sure that there's no information, sensitive information is not going to the wrong hand?
Well, thanks for that question. And firstly, I want to say that we understand that during a time of a pandemic, there are always those who look to take advantage of the crisis. And we're taking every precaution to ensure Canadians and our systems are protected. When you refer to Zoom in particular, I understand that the House of Commons is using Zoom for virtual parliament, and it's widely known to be an insecure application, of course, but it is not used in the public service, nor with Parliament for anything that is required to be confidential. So only for matters that can be discussed and dealt with in the open is Zoom and that type of public tool appropriate. And we have been providing guidance to public servants on what the appropriate tools are for which kind of activity in supporting Canadians.
Well, Minister, there's mostly a lot of public servants are working from home, from politicians to everyone else, and different departments operating from homes, and there's some sensitive information being exchanged back and forth. Are you aware of any information or sensitive information that kind of being leaked out, or you've received any complaints of any kind or any reporting on such an incident?
Well, Mr. Abultayev, I'll ask my officials to add to my answer because they will have more information about details, but I am not aware of any breaches. We have rapidly increased the capacity of the secure networks to be able to support the public servants working from home. In fact, before this pandemic emergency, an average at a single point in a day of secure remote connections was about 40,000. We are now up to 200,000, which means that there is a very fast and very effective transition to public servants working from home through secure networks. And there's also been secure cloud to ground networks created for other kinds of specific work. So it's an important question, and I think the public servants have been doing a great job to protect the integrity.
Mr. Botev, excuse me for interrupting.
Yes.
Minister, if I could get you just to move your microphone down a little bit, a couple of inches, not a little higher back up. Try that.
Okay.
That should be fine. Go ahead, Mr. Botev.
So, Minister, was any cybersecurity assessment been done before we use Zoom? And since when you think in any capacity the Zoom application being used by the government?
So the answer is that yes, Zoom is being used by government employees, but only in circumstances where their communications are public or can be public. So for anything that is restricted or confidential, Zoom is not used. The Chief Information Officer provides clear guidance to that. And I can, again, I invite my officials to add. I know in this format it's a little more difficult, but if there's anything they have to add, I welcome that. So, Paul.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chair, for the member's question. We have definitely done security assessments of all the different pieces of software to make sure that their uses are appropriate. And that is what translates into the guidance that the Minister referenced, that the Chief Information Officer then communicates to all departments. We have provided departments with secure remote access, so their employees, when working from home, when they need that secure access, have that available to them. But we've also made unsecured channels available because there was limits in the early days to the amount of bandwidth and secure remote connections, so that we could optimize the channels for what was secure and what was non-secure. And we continue to do that each and every day.
Chair, I think how much time I have left?
Got about less than 30 seconds.
Okay, quick questions. There were some breaches out there, if I understood correctly from the minister's aide. Was there any exchange of intelligence with other partners, such as the Five Eyes, for example, on incidents that's happening to us that happen elsewhere within our allies?
We are continually monitoring, and yes, the Center for Cybersecurity, which my ministry is a partner in, works closely with Five Eyes to identify threats.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Mr. McKinnon for 6 minutes, please. Mr. McKinnon.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Et je suis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm very happy to see my colleague, Madam Minister, and her officials with her today, and for having worked at Shared Services Canada. I'm very proud of everything that they've done in terms of resources. We've seen a lot of progress at the level of Shared Services Canada. So through you, Madam Minister, I wish to emphasize this success in terms of access and secured access, secured network and technological tools that were provided to civil servants so that they can continue serving Canadians during that crisis. I know that Shared Services Canada has often been criticized, but now it's really showing the way. So we're very proud of what they've been able to accomplish.
And I'm sure my colleagues don't always appreciate that we highlight success stories, Madam Minister, here. But I think it's important that the women and men of our public service get recognized for the incredible work that they've done. I do want to talk, because there's a lot of talk lately about, everyone's going to be just able to work from home, and we'll be able to empty all of our downtowns, and no one will ever have to go back to the office again. I do want to point out, and I know, Minister, you've been working very hard on technology-enabled workplaces, and that's work that goes on with Public Services and Procurement Canada as well, with respect to enabling flexibility, enabling unassigned workplaces, and enabling the kinds of workplaces that we're really going to need going forward, and do so in part using technology. So maybe we could have the benefit of your thinking on that.
Well, thanks, Mr. McKinnon. Thanks, Steve. Well, there's been certainly commentary in the public about how the emergency that we've been responding to with so much increase in digital tools and secure digital tools, how that will translate into changes post-COVID. And we're certainly thinking about how what might be a strategy for going forward post-COVID. I think we've all been surprised, and pleasantly surprised, as you mentioned, by how quickly we as a government were able to continue to serve Canadians, and not just that, ramp up service. As we know, almost 1 million Canadians applied for the CERB benefit on day one. So, I see this as a continuum, because from 2000 and for 2018's budget of over $2 billion over 5 years, there's been a very concentrated effort to have a more integrated approach to our information storage use and our digital government. That was an SSC budget. There's been $500 million put into the whole arena of cybersecurity and the creation of a collaborative approach to cybersecurity, which is really serving us very well as a government right now. So some of those building blocks of addressing the old data centers and migrating them, I think about 40% have now been migrated to modern data centers and cloud. Some of these fundamental pieces that may have been not given the attention they deserved over the years have really been a key focus of this government, which is what the Ministry of Digital Government is all about. It's to continue focusing on better serving Canadians, because really, what we know is that it just is not good enough if the only channels the public has to get service from their government is through downloading PDFs and faxing documents, or potentially standing in line and waiting to see someone.
No, we've moved it into the modern era. I just want to, I know Mr. Chair is going to cut me off very soon, but I just want to perhaps point out or even ask, we've spent a lot of time doing things as basic as putting Wi-Fi into the new GC workplace standard. So that public servants across departments can collaborate and come together in new modern workplaces to be able to, use technology to unleash the creativity. And that's going to be an important part of the mix going forward as well. And just wondering if you have any closing thoughts on that, if Mr. Chair, we have any time left.
Fortunately, we do not have any time left, but since there was an open-ended question, Minister, if you care to respond to Mr. McKinnon, I would ask you to do so in writing as soon as possible and send that response to our clerk. Now we'll go to a 6-minute round. Madame Vignola, 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
6 minutes, Madame Vignola. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Minister Murray. Indeed, what the employees have been doing in the past months has been quite spectacular, but we still have questions. So on May 8th, the CIO said that there was constant surveillance from the CSC establishment. So what are the greatest risks or the main threats for the government network, the federal government, and how does the federal government minimize those risks and threats?
Well, thank you for that question, Madame Vignola. And I think one of the keys is that we have an integrated approach to threats. So there may have been a previous day where each of the ministries had to deal with their cybersecurity threats. We have a very collaborative approach right now, and that's through the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. One example of how this works well is even in the creation of new benefits that happen so quickly. Those, for example, the emergency response benefit, there are cybersecurity officials that are monitoring that application to make sure that there are no vulnerabilities and that there are no attacks that succeed in disrupting our service. So it's a very collaborative approach. Each of the ministries has a clear and separate responsibility with respect to preventing and responding to cybersecurity threats and attacks. And I think it has been working very well.
Thank you. In your speech, you were speaking about the fraudulent website that was copying Government of Canada websites. How many of those sites were detected? And were they all eliminated?
So I will ask the official from Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, Scott Jones, to elaborate on that. I would say that that the monitoring and the very effective Government of Canada perimeter within which all of our secure government activities are placed and take place has resulted in a remarkable absence of real cyber incidents over the past time period during COVID when so much activity is happening. So Scott, do you have something to add?
Yes, thank you, Minister. In general, what we've done is we've worked with commercial partners and with cyber centers from around the world to take down anything that is impersonating the Government of Canada to try to dupe Canadians into taking some sort of online action. We've taken down hundreds of websites or malicious indicators, but also we've taught the commercial sector what it looks like, what the official, for example, CERB site looks like, so that they know and can recognize to take it down on their own as well. That way they protect all Canadians quickly.
Merci. Thank you. Thank you. Would it be possible to know how many victims those sites caused before they were detected and taken down?
Unfortunately, because we look for the malicious activity, we don't look towards Canadians. The CSE Act precludes us from looking towards Canadians. We don't have a count of victims. We'd have to turn to our colleagues at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre if a Canadian had reported it.
Est-ce qu'on a des employés de la fonction publique?
Do we have public servants? We have public servants who are working from home. Were they targets of cyber attacks?
In general, the Government of Canada is targeted approximately with around 2 billion malicious activities per day. A lot of that is just purely reconnaissance, looking for any vulnerable services. But we're able to take action and we block those with our colleagues at Shared Services. So yes, there continues to be attempts to target Government of Canada users. The extreme majority of those, greater than 99%, are blocked before any public servant even sees them.
Okay, so in the 1% that remains, were there any consequences, impacts of those cyber attacks on either the government data or the personal data of Quebecers and Canadians?
Mr. Jones?
We have seen no breach of any government systems in the last since the beginning of this event.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Mr. Green for 6 minutes. Mr. Green.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I certainly appreciate having the opportunity to hear from the Honourable Minister today. As you know, our constituency offices across the country have been absolutely inundated with calls for every single government announcement, particularly as it relates to EI and CERB benefits, certainly small businesses the same. So I can appreciate the Herculean effort that it must take to provide responses throughout the public service. We've been hearing, though, from many people that they've had problems with the processing of their EI and CERB applications and cannot get in touch with an agent from the CRA and Service Canada. A constituent in my riding, Shannon Cooper, applied for EI leave on March 19th and is still waiting to receive her first payment. She has needed to call Service Canada to help sort out problems with her application. One of the biggest challenges she's facing is that when she's finally able to talk with an agent on the phone, her call gets dropped and the agent doesn't call her back. This has happened multiple times, and she's now gone with close to 70 days without pay. Given the IT infrastructure challenges that certainly all of government is facing, are you aware of these issues of calls being dropped by call centers?
Well,
Before you attempt an answer, I would just remind Mr. Green that, again, try and keep your questions focused on the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. That is the terms of reference.
Mr. Chair, CERB applications are a direct response to COVID, respectfully, and it's a very important question.
Yeah, it is an important question. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to make sure the precision of the question is there.
Please it's rooted in CERB, so I assure you it's 100% related to COVID.
Well, thanks for that question. And of course, because serving Canadians quickly and effectively and securely is a high priority for our government, I'm always regret to hear that somebody is having a challenge, having an interaction with our government. But I can say that through the work of the public servants of Canada, to very quickly ramp up capability to work from home, and even call center employees are working from home in some cases. So it has been a unique circumstance, and given that the millions of Canadians that have needed government's help and the millions and millions that have received that help, I'm very proud of the work that has been done, but we will never stop trying to improve our systems and the infrastructure and the secure tools that are needed.
I can appreciate that, and I would expect that and hope that, certainly from the government's perspective. But in order to basically address these challenges that you're faced with, understanding that it's probably a function of old technology, and I'll let you comment on that in a moment, do you know exactly what percentage of calls are getting dropped? What type of evidence are you using to help improve the systems of IT?
Well, thank you for that question, and I'm going to ask Paul Glover to answer.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chair, for the member's question. Absolutely, we are aware of these issues, and I'm pleased to report that the situation is improving each and every day. The number of calls that were being directed to ESDC and CRA Canadians, to them, were literally unprecedented. And so steps have been taken to improve the system's ability to handle the number of calls that are coming at it, and to route them quickly and properly through to agents. And so we have been tracking the number of calls. It's improved quite substantially. The number of calls being dropped now is very, very few.
May I ask, just in terms, I like the generalities, but I would prefer the specific.
So yesterday there was none.
There was none, and no calls were dropped yesterday, is your assertion?
So it would depend, with all respect, on the definition of dropped. There are busy signals where, because there is a limit to the technology and the number of calls, or how long the system knows an average call will take for somebody to place on hold, that it places them, it gives them a busy signal so they don't even get in. So if we don't include those calls that enter the system and then are routed through, I am not aware of any dropped calls in the last number of days.
Okay, so just to close it out, in terms of the improvement which you've identified, and I'm very happy to hear that. I think our constituency offices may have a different anecdotal perspective, but if you could just give us a sense for when this unprecedented wave happened for drop calls till now, what would it have been at its peak?
We'll provide that through the clerk. I don't want to estimate. I do know that there's been a number of steps too. There were problems with calls that weren't dropped, but just simply never got answered, frankly. That was another issue. So people would get in and the call would never get dropped. It would just never get answered and the business would shut. So the departments have been adding, they virtually doubled the number of agents that they brought on. So we've handled that. The other thing that I would add, in addition to the dropped call issue, is we've tried to stand up more channels so that people can use voice response so they can still phone in, but rather than speaking to an agent, they can ask frequently asked questions. They can enter their information if they don't have access to a computer, still enroll with the benefit. So we've expanded the number of channels, and that's also had an improvement. So we'll get you a full breakdown of the progress from the outset to where we are today.
That's helpful. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to our 5-minute round of questions, starting once again with Mr. Bultev.
Well, thank you again, Chair. The federal government wants to assist or to help provinces build a framework into contact tracing through personal cellular devices. Is it safe to assume, Minister, that this is a pre-COVID or after COVID?
Well, this may be an question for the health minister, but I'll take a shot at it. And I think this is in response to COVID and in response to the very important program of opening up our economy and enabling our businesses to continue serving Canadians. And so I think it is, as we open up, so at that time, we need to be doing more contact tracing and more testing, and the federal government has offered to support the provinces who are responsible for that.
So speaking of which, we know that there's a previous attempts by the government, the specific government, to invade the privacy of Canadians, in specific the incident of Statistic Canada and the personal banking information. That's about 500,000 of these records being out without the knowledge of Canadians. So we know that our people, Canadians, are very concerned about their privacy and their private information being leaked out. So that's in addition to obviously that they've always been under surveillance and constant surveillance all the time. So the question is, could there be, or will there be any chance that the voluntary contact tracing initiative could be made mandatory? Yes or no?
I can't comment on that. So, but I can
say it's your department. It's your department, Minister, and I really appreciate. You're going to have to be doing the work at the end of the day.
Well, I know that that we'll be providing any advice and guidance and support that we can as digital government. It will be for the provinces are doing the testing and the tracing. Our federal government has offered funding to help them ramp that up, and has offered the work of federal employees to do the hours of contact tracing. But I would like to say that through this Chief Information Officer and our other public servants, we oversee very strong policies and guidance on privacy and respecting individuals' privacy.
So you're not only supporting the provinces financially, you also put in guidelines or guidance how this is going to be done. And it's very, very important because Canadians are going to look at two things. They're going to look at their privacy, and they can look at the information that needed by the government. So between public safety and the privacy, how are you going to cross that fine line?
Well, we have guidelines and laws around privacy. SSC, for example, has a privacy risk checklist and a requirement for privacy impact assessments in many cases for new infrastructure or initiatives. That would be SSC's initiative. So government's collection, its use, its disclosure is subject to privacy notice statements and consent forms. Consent for any data to be used for a purpose other than it was originally collected. So we have strong rules, and we will make sure that the appropriate ministries are aware of them.
Since this is in light of the COVID, I mean, this is happening because of COVID-19. When was the last legislation, or let's call it a policy, that was put forward by the ministry in light of this whole thing, so at least Canadians can understand, and even policymakers on the opposition side can understand where the government is heading with that?
Well, thank you, and I'll ask my official from the acting chief information officer, Mark Briard, to answer that question.
And very briefly, if you could, Monsieur Briard.
Pardon me, I'm just getting the mute going. So I'm sorry, the question was, when was the last time the privacy policy was updated?
Yes.
I don't have the exact date, but it's, and I'm just hoping to get it. It has been a while.
If you could provide, only because we're out of time, Monsieur, if you could get the exact information that Mr. Boutte has asked for, submit that in writing to our clerk as soon as possible.
I'll be happy to.
Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
We will now go to Mr. Weiler for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Minister, and the other witnesses for joining our committee today. I also want to give a quick shout out to all the employees that have been quickly able to shift from working in the office to working remotely and continuing to deliver a high level of service in a really, really stretched time. It's also incredible to hear and amazing to hear there's been no breaches of cybersecurity for public sector employees during the pandemic. First question I have for you, Minister, is what is the Government of Canada doing to protect the personal information of citizens in this increasingly digitally enabled government?
So I think we were just talking about the government's privacy policy. Every public servant has training on the privacy policy and is aware of it. Shared Services Canada has a very important role to play on the privacy of Canadians' data and personal information, because the SSC is the main government infrastructure and storage of information. And so they're a very strong gatekeeper, actually a custodian of the majority of this information. And there are very clear guidelines for their staff on secure document use and storage, as well as an inventory of all personal information handled by SSC enterprise staff. So they restrict and manage the collection, the use, the storage, and disposal of data to respect the intended purpose and privacy laws. And this is a high priority for us. Paul, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Minister. Just briefly, I would say, in addition to what you've said, any of the personnel that worked in the data centers where this data is housed are subject to the appropriate security clearance. All the data centers are monitored, and the data is encrypted. So even if we did, we wouldn't be able to look at it and understand what we're looking at. You need the keys at both ends. So it is the departments who get that data back and are able to use it appropriately. So we take the safeguards to make sure that anybody who handles that has the appropriate clearance, and that the data is always encrypted and only really available to those who need to see it when they need to see it.
Thanks for that answer. The next question here is, how is cybersecurity addressed in the Government of Canada, including cyber threats that may pose a risk to government infrastructure or potentially when they're aimed at private enterprise?
Well, so cyber security is addressed in a very integrated way, so that there is not a patchwork of approaches across the Government of Canada. And this is, I think this is essential to the success that we've been hearing about from officials today in terms of reducing the vulnerabilities and success of attacks. This Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity is the core organization that provides the various aspects of being able to protect government networks and activities from being hacked or being threatened. The Chief Information Officer branch, SSC, and CSE, the Communication Security Establishment, are the triumvirate in what is a coordinated approach, and have written what is called the Government of Canada Cybersecurity Management Plan, so that when an event or an incident occurs, it is very clear who has what role in responding, so that we can be effective as a organization right across government. So I will ask if Scott has other elements of that to add.
Thank you,
You've
Minister.
got about 30 seconds to respond, sir.
Thank you. Just to add a little bit more onto that, the Government of Canada has a multi-layers of defense that we use, and then we take everything we learn defending the Government of Canada and make sure it's available to every Canadian business. We've done that in many different ways. One is to give it to an organization called the Canadian Internet Registration Authority, so that every Canadian can benefit from something called Canadian Shield, which I'd be happy to talk about, but also sending out unique indicators of compromise that have never been seen anywhere else in the world because of the world-class defense we've been able to build for the government, and making sure we're leveraging that to give that to all Canadians, including Canadian businesses, of course.
Thank you very much. Back to Mr. Albute for 5 minutes, please.
Yes, we know that we've requested once from the Department of the Government Operations Basic Committee, the Department of Digital Government indicated that 11% of the federal government's application portfolio was unused, basically. So can you, Minister, tell how many in numbers, how many applications that been unused or hasn't been assessed, if for a better term?
Just could I clarify, hasn't been assessed for what purpose, Mr. Albute?
Well, for all purposes, for their validity, for the benefits of it, and actually whether we need it or not, you know, and I know that there's still many of the digital centers that we have, they either being shut down or having been used. And I know that we've spoken about that before.
Okay,
so
well,
I'm wondering that the software applications, how many software applications that hasn't been assessed yet?
Well, thanks for that question. And the software applications are actually owned by the departments that use them to provide their services. So they are not part of the responsibility of digital government. What I can say is that there are many, say it's somewhere around 18,000 applications, and some of them are older. There's no question about that. So we're working with all of the departments to encourage them to reduce the number and consolidate their applications, as well as to use digital principles so that we can have an approach across government where we're working together and sharing applications that can be used for various departments.
So do I understand that there's the 18,000 applications hasn't been assessed? Is that correct?
Well, I will ask Mr. Brouillard to comment on that question.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister. The 18,000 refers to the total inventory of applications in our application portfolio. Of those, we have an annual reporting exercise where departments report in on their status, their health, as you mentioned, their technical validity. And out of that inventory, there's about 10 or 11% that aren't reported on. This can be because they've been closed, they are no longer in use, or it could be mistakes in reporting. So the other way of looking at it is we have over 90% of applications reporting.
So the reporting or the written answer that came back from the department showing that there's 7,363 software applications that hasn't been assessed. So that is based on the report that comes out of your department. So to clarify that on records, at least to correct the records in place, the answer is 7,363 software applications that hasn't been corrected. My question now, how can you? I mean, this is showing that the digital infrastructure is collapsing. Is that a fair assessment to say that because there's 36%? Only 36% of the applications are in healthy state, the rest are not?
Well, thanks for the question. And I would characterize our situation in Canada as that we're doing a great deal of work to transform our government's internet and telecommunications technology foundations to be able to serve Canadians better. And there are many examples of where that's working. And yes, there are some legacy systems, data centers, as well as applications that pose challenges, and we are working in a very thorough and step-by-step way to address those issues.
So as the only 36% of those applications are in healthy state, the 64% are not, which is basically 2/3 are not. What is the timetable, Minister, that we're going to achieve looking forward to make sure that what we have basically 100% is healthy to be able to operate properly?
And you've got about 30 seconds, Minister.
Okay, so I'll ask Mr. Brouillard to respond to that.
Thank you, Minister. So the importance is not to, and we do not have a timetable for the whole application, but it is to focus on modernizing those applications of the highest criticality and the highest business value to government, and that is what we're doing. We have plans to look at those applications and migrate them to either end-state data centers or cloud.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to our last 5-minute intervention. Mr. Kuzmierczuk, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just to pick up on the line of questioning of my colleague, according to the SSC's 2020-2021 departmental plan, quote, nearly 80% of the federal government's roughly 18,000 applications reside in aging and unreliable data centers, which are at risk for service outages and failures, and it will prioritize moving these applications to the cloud or enterprise data. I just wanted to know whether the COVID crisis has accelerated this process. Are there also advantages in terms of cybersecurity to moving to the cloud? And maybe we'll just begin with those two questions from the start.
Well, there certainly are advantages to moving to the cloud, and I would say security is a big one, but also cost effectiveness. I will ask our Shared Services Canada, Paul Glover, to comment on whether that initiative, which our government funded several years ago and is well underway, where that migration of data centers has continued during this last 3 months when we've had to really focus on an emergency and serve millions of Canadians in a way that hadn't been anticipated.
Thank you, Minister. And without a doubt, that work has continued. It's really important. Some of these buildings were end of life. We needed to get the data centers out of there into what we call modern end-state data centers. So we continue to work very hard. In the last 2 years, we've exceeded our targets. 120% of last year and over 100% of target this year, which was just about 100 data centers closed this past year. So we continue to significantly reduce the number of data centers that we're closing. But the goal isn't just to shut data centers. As you say, it's the applications that reside in them and to make sure that that we have robust strategies to make sure that those applications can continue to operate. So we're doing that. We're moving them to more modern data centers. We're making sure that when we can't get to them, we're replacing hardware so that they no longer have the same risks. So not all of them need to be moved. Some of them, it's just a good bit of maintenance and upgrades to make sure that they're functional. And with respect to cloud, absolutely, we've seen an acceleration because it's about speed and scale. And some of the comments about call centers earlier, when you go from a few thousand calls to hundreds of thousands of calls a minute, you need to be able to scale up very quickly. Cloud provides the ability to do that. Very pleased to report that through the cooperation of CSE and the policy direction of the CIO, we're ensuring that the journey to cloud is safe for the Canadians and the government. We have a secure channel to cloud so that when applications do exist in the cloud, the network, the path there is secure, and all of our cloud contracts are protected. That includes things like the Patriot Act and others, where all of the cloud data centers are on Canadian soil for departments to be able to use them for protected information. So the work has accelerated, and we are ensuring that that is done in a very, very secure and safe manner.
Thank you very much for that very detailed response. And just to follow up on that, I'm just wondering whether the federal government has experienced fewer cybersecurity incidents affecting applications that are already in the cloud. So,
I would repeat what Scott Jones has said. Our perimeter is really world-class and is the envy of many other nations. So it is constantly blocking threats. So to say there's none, there's literally billions every day, but they work. They don't get through. And even in those exceptionally rare cases where they do get through, they're spotted very quickly and contained. Servers are shut down, brought offline, unplugged before any damage can be done. So there is literally no incidents in the last 10 weeks that I can think of where we have had a breach and there's been any significant, data breaches at all. There's incidents blocks every day, but none of consequence.
And you've, sorry, go ahead, Minister. Yes, please.
Well, I'd like to add that that the
very,
knowledge...
very briefly, Minister, please.
Okay, for those that are listening or watching, as well as our members, to know that there is access to a free version of Sierra's Canadian Shield firewall. And so for that small businesses, but also individual Canadians, and that is drawing on the experience and expertise of this combined team through the cybersecurity initiatives in the Government of Canada.
Thank you so much. We'll now go to our final 2.5-minute intervention, starting with Monsieur Bassirou Duval.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le...
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I was listening before, and I heard that apparently we've had no security issue, no leak, no data leak with our civil servants and with the staff at the House of Commons since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, even though people have worked from home. But I've heard that most of the times when there are leaks or spying occurring, people are not always aware of it. People don't notice it. So how can you say that there have been none if people are not aware of it?
Well, thank you for that question. I mean, what we do know is that it was a high priority for us to be able to serve Canadians, to provide the tools so that our public services could do that and do it safely within the perimeter of the Government of Canada's security perimeter. And it's been very successful. We're also clear what activities have to happen through secure channels and which ones can happen through other public tools like Zoom. But I will ask Mr. Glover to explain how we can know.
So you cannot guarantee that there hasn't been any leak or any spying of data, or whatsoever?
Mr. Chair, and I will turn to Scott from the CSE to round this answer out. But the reason we can say that is because we have tools that monitor the traffic. So we're able to understand, and these tools are intelligent using artificial and other things, the firewalls, to both block and monitor what's happening. So if traffic's getting redirected, is inappropriate as flagged, we would be able to see that and stop that. Scott?
Mr. Jones, I know you're going to be sticking around for another hour, and perhaps you can expand upon the answer you were about to give, but we're completely out of time, unfortunately. We'll go to our final intervention. Mr. Green, 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In its Digital Operations Strategic Plan in 2018-2022, the federal government recognized the need to modernize its aging at-risk IT infrastructure and systems. It also indicated that there's an at-risk that its IT systems and assets that have been in service beyond their normal useful life will fail to meet the current and emerging requirements for the delivery of timely and critical services and information to Canadians. To the Minister, in your mandate letter, the Prime Minister asked you to identify all core and at-risk IT systems and platforms. Has the federal government modernized its at-risk infrastructure and systems since the beginning of the pandemic? And if so, what is the estimated cost of updating all identified core and at-risk IT systems and platforms?
Well, thank you. That's a pretty big task that you just laid out there, and this is something that is being done over the course of a number of years. The Shared Services Canada was assigned $2.2 billion in the 2018 budget, and there has been other budget amounts since then. So I will ask Mark, who's the acting CIO, to continue with the details to that question.
Thank you, Minister. So as you mentioned, Minister, in Budget 2018, funds were allocated to modernize, and that included an application modernization fund of $110 million that was designed to support departments in taking their applications, their legacy applications, and moving them into modern cloud infrastructures. At the same time, that's the right opportunity to look at their digital processes and look at improving the way they deliver those services. So identification of core services is ongoing. There's an inventory of the critical systems that require those modernizations, and we're continuing to work with departments on supporting those initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Minister, that ends our first round of questions. We want to thank you very much for your appearance here today. I think safely say that I suspect when you signed up for this job as Minister of Digital Services, you didn't think, as none of us did, that the situation we see today where we're living in a virtual world would be upon you and your officials. But thank you for being here. We appreciate your appearance. Good luck to you. Hope you stay healthy and safe. Colleagues, we will not suspend. I will excuse the minister, however, but we will go directly into our second hour. We have with us the head of the Communications Security Establishment, Mr. Scott Jones, who has a brief 5-minute opening statement. Mr. Jones, if I could ask you to deliver that statement now.
Well, good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for having me continue to appear before you today. I am the head of the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity within the Communications Security Establishment, and we are one of Canada's key intelligence agencies and the country's lead technical and operational agency for cybersecurity, and we report to the Minister of National Defence. CSE continues to leverage all aspects of our mandate to help ensure that Canada is protected against cyber threats and that the Government of Canada has access to information that can help inform decisions on Canada's approach to COVID-19. In October 2018, the Cyber Centre was launched as a unified source of expert advice, guidance, services, and support on cybersecurity operational matters, providing Canadian citizens and businesses with a clear and trusted place to turn for cybersecurity advice. And the COVID-19 pandemic has required us to make changes to our daily routines and has impacted the way we work and communicate with one another. During these uncertain times, cyber threat actors are attempting to take advantage of Canadians' heightened levels of concern and fears around COVID-19. Many Canadians are naturally feeling fearful and stressed, and those strong emotional responses can be exploited online. We've seen an increase in reports of malicious actors using COVID-19 in phishing campaigns and malware scams. And I would like to provide you with an update on the work the Cyber Centre is doing to protect Canadians, systems of importance, the House of Commons, and the Government of Canada from cyber fraud occurring before, during, and after the pandemic. First, to protect Canadians, we continue to leverage all of our mandate to ensure that Canada is protected against threats. The Cyber Centre is working tirelessly to continuously raise public awareness of cyber threats to Canadian health organizations by proactively issuing cyber threat alerts and providing tailored advice and guidance to Canadian health organizations, government partners, and industry stakeholders. In addition to our advice and guidance for Canadian organizations, we continue to enhance the Get Cyber Safe public awareness campaign to help every Canadian take action to help themselves be safe online. In coordination with industry partners and the International Network of Cybersecurity Organizations, we have contributed to the removal of fraudulent sites and other materials used to lure Canadians, including sites impersonating the Government of Canada, as I mentioned before. As many people and organizations have shifted to working and learning from home due to COVID-19, their personal devices and home networks have become more attractive targets for cyber threat actors. And cyber attackers are looking to exploit teleworking connections because so many people are now working outside of their organization's security perimeters, and they needed to quickly shift. In response, we have partnered with the Canadian Internet Registration Authority, or CIRA, as you've already heard, to launch CIRA's Canadian Shield. And while the Minister did a great description of what CIRA was, I would like to take this opportunity to thank CIRA for their tremendous leadership in giving Canadians an option to better protect themselves online, and they are terrific partners. To further protect Canadians, the next important step we've taken is informing them about cybersecurity matters. Through targeted advice and guidance, we're helping to protect Canadian cybersecurity interests. And we shared security tips on video teleconferencing tools and telework to help inform and educate Canadians so they can make good decisions about staying safe online. We've created a collection of advice and guidance products, many of which are now more relevant than ever. And I do encourage Canadians to visit our website to learn more about the specific guidance and best practices that they can apply to protect themselves. We have taken action to protect programs of importance to the government, including monitoring and protecting Government of Canada important programs, such as the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit web application, as you heard Mr. Glover say earlier. As well, we have continued to evaluate cloud applications to ensure their security, including for the Public Health Agency of Canada, enabled cybersecurity monitoring and defense for cloud usage across the government. The Cyber Centre continues to collaborate with the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, operated by the RCMP, the Ontario Provincial Police, and the Competition Bureau, who are Canada's trusted sources for reporting and mitigating mass marketing fraud. I'm also happy to mention that the Cyber Centre is a long-standing partnership with the House of Commons. As Parliament has shifted to virtual meetings, we are working alongside the House of Commons by providing tailored advice and guidance, including to working to support virtual sittings and committee meetings. The Cyber Centre's shared advice and guidance has helped yourselves and all the members make informed decisions when selecting, installing, and using video teleconferencing tools. We are very proud to be supporting the Parliament and the continuation of open parliamentary proceedings. And finally, it's important to note that the Government of Canada has a strong and valuable relationship with our international cyber partners. We regularly share information, which has a significant impact on protecting our respective countries' safety and security. And I want to reassure Canadians that CSE and the Cyber Centre continues to work hard to mitigate these threats and protect Canadians. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We'll now go into our 6-minute round of interventions, starting with Mr. McCauley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Briard, welcome. I'll start with you. How are we, mostly this is going to be around access to information, how are we updating the guidelines for employees, the Government of Canada, information management?
You mean in terms of the new working conditions?
Of course, yes.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we've reiterated to all GC employees that they have the responsibility to make sure that they ensure that any information of business value that is worked on if it's worked on a GC equipment but from home, then there's no issue.
But are we doing anything besides reiterating to them?
Reminding them that they have the responsibility, and again, that any public infrastructure like Zoom or other collaboration sites is for unclassified material only.
Okay. Now, in the directive of record keeping states, it outlines effective record keeping practices that enable departments to manage and protect the integrity of information. Again, what are we changing if we've got so many people working at home now, one, to protect that information, but also to make sure it is available for ATIPs?
Right. So we're providing the guidance that if users or if GC employees are providing critical services, they still have access to the networks, they still have access to those tools. For users that are not, and sometimes asking them to either connect to the networks after hours or sporadically, we remind them that they still have the responsibility to get those records of business value back into those systems. There's just a little bit of tolerance for delays because they may not be able to connect to the network at all times.
Right.
But they're still working on secure government furnished equipment from home, and they're able to connect when possible.
Okay. The ATIP process has been put on hold. Obviously, people are working at home. When are we actually going to see it reopen so that the public, politicians, et cetera, can start getting answers to the access to information requests?
So I don't believe that the process has been put entirely on hold. Again,
it has been, yes.
Is it completely on hold? Okay.
I would challenge you to find a single response in the last 2 months.
Okay, I'd have to check on that. So certainly there is allowances for the fact that people don't have access to their offices, so they may not be able to do the same type of research as they would from internally.
Are we developing a plan to address this? Because we can't just sit and say forever we can't access it. Are we developing a plan, or are we doing a wait and see to see how COVID bears out?
We are working with the Office of the Chief Human Resource Officer to start planning on the resumption return to the workplace. And as part of that, we expect that there is a backlog of activities, things like potentially ATIP, where they will have to be addressed on a priority basis. So those plans are in the process of being developed.
Okay. The Information Commissioner, Ms. Maynard's been very, I guess, critical would be a play word of the government's handling of transparency right now. She puts out on her website, and I'll quote, "Institutions are reminded they must continue to properly document their decisions and decision-making process in accordance with the policy on information management." How are we actually ensuring that that's done besides saying they're using government servers?
Well, so those guidances are provided to departments. It is up to the departments to ensure that they're being followed and making sure that there is the documents that are critical to recording the decisions.
But the CIO of Treasury Board is the overseer. Is this another example of, well, that's departments, and if they fail, that's too bad?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's too bad. I think it's responsibility of the departments and the deputies to follow the policies that are put out by Treasury.
But what is Treasury Board doing to follow up to make sure this is getting done? That's my concern.
No, I appreciate that. So we do have active reviews of compliance and annual reporting to report back to the center.
Okay. Are we ramping up these active reviews right now, considering nothing's going on with ATIP-wise, and there's this very real concern as expressed by the Information Commissioner?
So right now, the activity is focused on understanding where departments need support and providing them those capabilities, making sure that the operational priorities come first.
What's your confidence level that the policy and information management is going to be followed?
Fairly high. I think that everyone is aware of those importances. We've had an amount of collaboration and communications in the community that we've never seen before. So it's not that people are not aware of this, and there's an honest desire to make it work.
Great. Just the last question on that. She lists on her website tips for like 9 email tips for maintaining information. Have you rolled that out to the departments, or are you just waiting for the departments to kind of look up her website on their own? Again, Treasury Board is responsible for this. If you let it go, we've seen this repeatedly from Treasury Board on human resources, whistleblowing, departmental plans. Treasury Board's responsible, but all they say it's the departments, and then nothing gets done.
So I haven't.
I'm going to have to, sir, Mr. Birard, I'm going to have to provide that answer, as I mentioned before, in writing as soon as possible to the clerk. I'm sure you want to give a fulsome answer to Mr. McCauley's question, and I'll give you that opportunity to do so as quickly as possible, sir. We'll now go to our second round of questions, 6 minutes again, to Mr. Johari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to all our witnesses. Thank you for the information you provided so far. My question is going to be to Mr. Brouillard. A lot of my colleagues have taken an approach that they've gone to one of the specific, what I call the pillar or building blocks of our digital strategy or the digital government, whereas it's whether it's cybersecurity or whether it's aging infrastructure, etc. For the benefit of the many Canadians who are watching, very briefly, if you could take a step back and kind of demystify our government digital strategy into 4 or 5 key pillars and give us an idea of where they were in the path of us delivering our mandate before COVID-19, what the impact of COVID-19 has been on our mandate to be able to deliver. And I'll ask some follow-up questions after.
So I'm sorry, you're asking in relation to the COVID-19, what is the digital?
No, previously, yeah, but I mean before COVID-19, there was a mandate. There is a mandate letter for the minister. There is a mandate letter. You as the CIO, what would you identify as the key building block of our government digital strategy?
So okay, that's a little bit of a complex answer, and I'll try to break it down. I think there's various components to the Government of Canada, and all of those components need to be moving forward. So, and Paul Glover can speak more to this, but the modernization of the infrastructure to support the requirements to connect. We live in an interconnected world. We have to have networks that are efficient and able to talk amongst themselves. Cybersecurity, the topic of today, is an absolute critical strategic imperative. We must ensure that the information that is entrusted to us by Canadians is held securely and is properly treated. Information management. So again, making sure the privacy of Canadians is properly entrusted, but at the same time supporting open government initiatives and making sure that the information that can be made available to Canadians is made available through the open government initiatives. And then we get into the applications and the service delivery and ensuring that those are developed and designed in modern ways with the digital standards and principles in mind, first of which being user first, user centric. So if we aren't designing our services with the end user, the Canadians, or Canadian businesses.
Perfect. So that's exactly what I was hoping you go and kind of demystify those different, what I call building blocks. Now, then we had COVID-19, and naturally that has impacted our strategy or our roadmap to deliver what we had committed. Now, can you quickly talk about the impact on the overall impact on our ability to be able to deliver, and where have we had the highest impact?
So internally, the work that Shared Services has done has been incredible to shift the entire network configuration from one that is centered on people sitting in buildings talking to the outside to everyone sitting at home talking to the inside. And Minister and Mr. Glover talked a little bit about those actions that were taken. So that was the first pivot. The second pivot was very clearly the benefits to Canadians and the work that CRA and ESDC did to deploy the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit, as well as others, the wages and things like that. And those were...
Sorry, quickly, where do you think our vulnerabilities are going forward based on the original strategy that we had?
I'm not sure I understand. The vulnerabilities in response to...
Our ability to be able to deliver our mandate. Because of the impact of COVID-19.
Right. I think that it isn't necessarily a vulnerability rather than a shift.
A risk area.
But also a shift in priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a natural reason for that. And I think that those reasons are valid. And as we start to plan for resumption of business and return to the workplace, going back to those original priorities pre-COVID are going to be is going to be the next focus.
So give me one of the priorities that we have to pay special attention to as we are ramping up and opening up the economy.
So I think that's a little bit out of my my wheelhouse because I'm focused more on the internals of government operations.
Yeah, I realize that, but we are supporting, as an internal government, we are supporting those initiatives.
Right. Absolutely. So ensuring that the departments who are responsible for that have the infrastructure required to deliver those services is a key priority, and that's absolutely what we're focusing on.
So I got 30 seconds left, and quick question back to you is, do we have the resources and the funding, whether we have the capital resources and the funding to be able to deliver that? And if we not, where should we get those? Where should we focus on getting those resources? Thank you.
Very, very short answer, please.
So I think the short answer is that's part of the planning process and the prioritization that we have to look at as we move forward.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Madame Vignola. 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Madame Vignola, 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît. Oh, sorry about that little bit there. Oh, there was a sudden cut in the interpretation. I didn't hear anything. So in the Minister on the Departmental Plan, Shared Services Canada indicated that cyber threats are constant. We heard about that earlier. We heard that there were 2 billion attacks every day on the various government services, or that's what I heard anyway. What resources does shared services need to prevent those attacks? And secondly, cooperation with other police services, for example, Sûreté du Québec. Is there cooperation? And a third question, where do these threats come from? Are they internal within Canada or from outside? I'll stop there after 3 questions. We'll see after that.
Okay, Monsieur Brouillard.
Mr. Brouillard or Mr. Jones, please.
So, go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
Maybe I'll answer the general cybersecurity questions first. The first aspect in terms of where do they come from? They come from all around the world. This is typical for cyber actors. There's no unique location. What we really look is to how to take care of any of the malicious activity rather than the individuals behind it. We work with our colleagues in law enforcement, and certainly we do work with law enforcement from across the country, including the Sûreté du Québec, with our partners in the RCMP as well, to make sure that we're trying to address these things. But primarily, we let law enforcement do their job, and we respond to ours, which is to really try to enhance the safety of Canadians in terms of giving them advice on how to protect themselves. And we really hope that our colleagues in law enforcement, we try to get as much information as we can so they can do their jobs to go after the criminals at the other end of malicious cyber activity. Paul?
Thanks, Scott. I think in response to the resources that shared services need, it is a number of things. It's access to expertise, like the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, that's constantly monitoring those things. It's access to technology in the networks, in the data centers. It's a range of things that work together to make sure, including, frankly, the physical layouts of buildings. Oftentimes, you need to take a look at internal threats, and so we make sure that, for example, the data centers, people going in, going out, it's all properly logged, captured. The ability to remove hardware is something that is deeply, tightly controlled. So it is definitely multifaceted. We look at threats from all angles, and we rely on a lot of the policy direction and expertise from our colleagues elsewhere, and then work to ensure that we apply best practices to put that into the systems overall. So that's right from the desktop right through the network to the end data center and every step along the way.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for that. Now, in terms of, we talked about applications earlier. There are so many. There are all kinds of rumors, but there are businesses that want to be able to monitor what their employees are doing. There's some businesses that want to do that. Does the Government of Canada do that with its own employees?
So
go ahead.
We're all pausing here to take. So I'll take a first shot at the member's question. We do not monitor how long they're on. Those are issues that the department does. What we do monitor is the type of traffic, the nature of it from a security point of view, to make sure, for example, they're visiting appropriate sites, the nature of the activity. So it has at a very depersonalized level. And oftentimes it's not an individual, it's firewalls, it's artificial intelligence that's looking at those things. So it's not exactly the same as individual companies trying to time track their employees, what they're doing. This is purely from a security, the nature of the communications, the nature of the exchange, to make sure that there has been no compromises or threats.
Merci.
Thank you. We also heard about increasing the bandwidth and new structures, new computers, Netro, for example, and the increase in cybersecurity needs. What impact has that had on budgets to this point?
About a 30-second answer, if that's possible.
Sure, 30 seconds. It's been about $58 million all totaled. That's everything from tablets and equipment to help people work at home, network upgrades, secure remote access points, to specialized equipment and hardware to deal with the volumes of Canadians trying to access new benefits, increase storage costs, compute costs to deal with those unprecedented volumes. So that's everything end to end.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Mr. Green for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you. It's certainly not every day where you get to put questions to the communications security establishment. So I'm going to go ahead and take that opportunity today, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Jones. In 2018, the federal government launched the Cyber Center as a part of the CSE by consolidating cybersecurity expertise from the CSE, the Department of Public Safety, and the SSC. How many employees work for the Cyber Center?
Thank you for the question. At this time, we have about 800 employees spread across the traditional mandate of CSE, which was the cryptographic expertise that we brought, and then the Government of Canada Security Operations Center, plus the National CERT as well.
And how many of them came from the Department of Public Safety and SSC, respectively?
Approximately 150 positions were transferred.
And how were they selected?
It was the people doing the functions that existed at those departments. Both departments transferred folks, and then we've integrated them in and designed a brand new cyber center.
Okay, thank you. According to a media report, the CSE is working in coordination with its partners to ensure COVID-19 related phishing sites mimicking the Government of Canada are removed. Who are those partners?
So we work with partners around the world in the international cybersecurity community. So we all do, when we see malicious activity hitting our country, for example, we can make a request to a national community emergency response team in any other country. And then we also have contracted to commercial partners. We typically don't give the name of the partners because we don't endorse companies. We've got a contractual relationship, but because we also can give them a reputational boost, it tends to be something we're very careful about.
Yeah, that's good. Very, very well stated. Thank you. Could you provide maybe some further examples of how the CSE's cybersecurity work is related to COVID-19?
Absolutely. So I've already talked about the examples of taking down fraudulent websites and working with partners there. In another case, we've also issued many alerts directly to the healthcare sector, and we have cross-sector tables that we've worked with Canadian industry as well on COVID-19 and the response. Everything from communications and technology, but also health sectors, our provincial and territorial partners as well, to make sure that we're sharing as much information as possible. In fact, we've hit all the major critical infrastructure sectors where we have, at the height of the crisis when this was first starting and everybody was getting on their feet, we were having multiple calls a week and directing information to them constantly.
This might seem like a bit of a frivolous question, but I'm going to put it anyways because it's a concern of mine around fraud, and it might not be in your portfolio. But are there new technologies in place that enable us to better target the old school phishing scams that are through telephones, i.e., I still continue, even as a member of parliament, on my government phone to get CRA calls. I'm about to go to jail unless I send the money right away. Is there ways that we can fight back against that type of traditional phone scam?
I get those same calls as well.
That must be interesting. Do you let them know where you work?
Sometimes if I've got a lot of time, I'll try and keep them occupied. So at least if they spend time with me, they don't spend time on another Canadian. But in general, this is where I would really look to the work that the CRTC has been doing and some of our telecommunications partners to try and deal with this. The problem really is that the international telephone system is working off of standards written in 1975. In some cases that just are not designed to have security in mind. It was designed for a very few monopolistic telephone operators that were all trusted. And so they're really trying to adapt to this. That's a challenge that we're facing. We are trying to support them and work with them through some of our collaboration tables, but it is a pretty significant challenge just because of the environment, unfortunately.
Thank you. That actually concludes my questions. I won't take up time for the sake of taking up time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Now we'll go then to 5-minute rounds, and we'll start with Madame Block. 5 minutes, please. Mrs. Block, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Sometimes the challenge of getting
the audio level is very, very low, Mrs. Block. If you can adjust your microphone.
Sure, let me see. Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
Thank you. It's sometimes the headset hurts, and so I take it off while I'm listening to everybody else. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you also to our witnesses for joining us today. As you noted in your opening remarks, Mr. Jones, these are extraordinary times which have required us to change the way we work and communicate. And while we have risen to the challenge, I believe it is more important than ever that we secure critical infrastructure as we shift government operations to digital and telework. Also in your opening remarks, Mr. Jones, you note that the Government of Canada has a strong and valuable relationship with our international cyber partners, and that we regularly share information which has a significant impact on protecting our respective countries' safety and security. And maybe this segues just a little bit into the answer that you were just providing to my colleague, Mr. Green. According to an article in the Telegraph on Saturday, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom announced that he will reduce Huawei's role in Britain's 5G network in the wake of the coronavirus outbreak. If Huawei is a part of Canada's 5G network, will it pose a security risk to Canadians?
Thank you for the question. And I think it's important to note that right now there's an ongoing security review led by the Minister of Public Safety. We're certainly supporting from the cybersecurity elements of that. And we take all of the information that we have into account. Certainly something that we face is how to secure any network. And one of the really, really important concepts is that we really should have zero trust in any equipment we're using. And that's the same structure we've taken with the Government of Canada, where we've really tried to build in multiple layers of defense. You always assume that a layer is not going to be able to protect it, and you add another layer of defense on that, so that there's always a check, belts and suspenders, check and balance, depending on how you want to describe it, so that we can layer security in place. And then ultimately, some of the other decisions will need to be taken as part of the policy.
Right.
But we.
Okay, thank you. So other Five Eyes partners have already made a decision on Huawei and their 5G networks. Is there something different about Canada that that dictates that we have not made a decision yet?
So we've been working to really look at this to provide the cybersecurity advice as part of the broader review that's ongoing. And one of the key aspects for us is really leveraging our experience since 2013 of running a cyber security review program, which really was about, regardless, building better security from the start in with our telecommunications partners. And so we've really been trying to leverage that experience, but provide a definitive and a strong source of information to the government to make a decision.
So from your perspective, would it even be possible for Canada to make a decision right now on Huawei's involvement with our 5G networks?
I think one of the key things for us is 5G is the standards are evolving, and one of the key things for us is making sure that regardless of vendors, no matter where those vendors come from in the world, that we're building in security that is agnostic of origin. It's a complicated supply chain for all vendors, and one of the key things for us is really ensuring that we're positioning Canada to be protected from regardless of the vendor, wherever Canadians are located, to make sure that we're building those relationships and security elements in from the start.
So I appreciate what you said about, always considering that a network is vulnerable. Is Huawei considered a higher risk vendor when it comes to a 5G network?
One of the things that we always look for is how products are being built, where they're being built, how they're being assembled, the origin of their components, the ownership of their companies, et cetera. And that's for any product. We apply that expertise as part of something you heard earlier today talk about supply chain integrity. We apply that expertise there as well. And so really we look, we add on extra mitigations, extra risk reduction activities, depending on those different factors to try to bring the level of risk down to a acceptable level. One of the key things in my job is that you never really can fully sleep well at night because there's always risk that remains. The only way to really reduce your risk down to zero on the internet and in communications is to shut it all off. That's just not obviously viable.
Thank you very much. We will now go to Monsieur Drouin for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I will be asking my questions to Mr. Glover. I recall almost 10 years ago, 2013, I believe, it was Marissa Mayer when the whole debate about working at home versus not working at home, and that Yahoo CEO had said, I'm bringing back all the employees back to work and nobody's working from home. In our case, I know that some employees were able to work from home, but now COVID-19 hits and now everybody must work from home. Can you talk to me about ramping up that capacity to allow telework, to allow our public servants to work from home?
Just working with the mute there, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the member's question. Absolutely be happy to do that. And my apologies if I take up all your time, just wave, I will stop. We did a ton of work here, truly unprecedented. It started with what we call secure remote access points to make sure that we were doing this safely. So when Mr. Jones was talking about all the work in terms of COVID, one of the things he forgot to share with you is all the advice that they gave us about how to do this safely. And that involved setting up secure remote access points for public servants to do that. We worked with all of the major telcos and internet providers to expand bandwidth, dedicate it in spots where we knew it was weak. We worked with first responders to make sure they had priority access to the lines that they needed. So it was really, really multifaceted. We realized very quickly that it wasn't just the number of secure remote access points that was relevant, it was also bandwidth. It was how they were working, what they were doing, and they were doing a lot. And so we had to really increase the bandwidth. So we've more than doubled just about doubled the number of secure remote access points. And we have just about doubled the bandwidth that's dedicated to this as well. So big changes in that space. In addition to that, we moved to make sure, for example, the minister spoke about call center operators, that they had tablets, they had phones so that they didn't need to go into a physical call center, worked with the telcos and the service providers to make sure that that technology worked. That was part of why in the early days we had quite a few, frankly, dropped calls, and we worked quickly to correct that, route those calls to people's homes so that they would be able to do that. We also realized that not everybody needed those secure remote access, so we worked to stand up what we called a government collaboration site. So it's Microsoft Office 365 and Teams in the cloud, but not secured. And so public servants are able to still work together to collaborate with colleagues on a government-sponsored platform. It is not secured, they know that, and then we're going to roll that back in so that no information is lost. So we tried to give people as many tools and choices to be able to operate. We doubled our video conferencing capacity, and we went from about 1.5 million minutes a day of teleconferences to over 5 million a day. So it was literally just standing up capacity. Not just a tablet and internet, but the telephones that go with it, the video conferencing, the security, the servers to store all of the data when SERB and more people were applying. It was really quite comprehensive.
So, Mr. Glover, did your organization deal with, because I know through the buy and sell website, for instance, IT services and IT products were identified as one of the priority for COVID-related issues. Did your organizations go to the same suppliers that you would normally go to, or how did you provide some innovation within the system to allow, maybe there are new products out there that we don't know of yet, that there was great solutions that were offered through buy and sell? How did your department balance the I'm going to go with the people I know versus there may be new solutions out there that we still don't know of?
So there's two parts, Mr. Chair, to the member's question. The first is we needed to move quick. So scale and speed mattered, and we looked for partners and vendors that were going to be able to do that. To move at the numbers we were dealing with, millions of Canadians logging in simultaneously on day one, that was a no-fail. We needed to be ready. The systems needed to work. So we had to work with people who could move at the speed and the scale we were looking for. So it was not who we knew. It was speed, scale, and security. We also, because we work from coast to coast to coast, we had to look at our relationships with SMEs. We couldn't get to all the places we needed to get to. And so we shifted the business model to allow, for example, trusted partners to be able to configure and install equipment for us. We would audit that and ship direct to reduce the times that we were using. So we innovated that way and tried to bring more SMEs, particularly those that perhaps might have been hurting for some business. And we had some, if they could meet our security requirements, we were able to do and bring that into the ecosystem. So it was that mix. I will tell you, quite frankly, I received...
Very briefly, sir, you're over time now. So in the next 15 seconds, please.
I received offers for new technologies virtually every day, and we worked with partners to try and assess those to find ones that were relevant to us. But we have literally been inundated with people trying to provide new services to us, and we're trying to work through all those.
Thank you very much. We'll now go back to Mr. Abulte for 5 minutes, please.
Is it Mr. McCauley or myself?
It's me, Tom.
Mr. McCauley, go right ahead, please.
Thanks. Mr. Jones, I'd just like to follow up on Mrs. Block's question regarding Huawei. You commented all vendors, or we have to protect ourselves from all vendors. Do you feel the same way about the other two main vendors, Ericsson and Nokia, for servers as we do for Huawei, that we have to protect ourselves against them?
I think what we look to do is we look to make sure that we evaluate every individual product and company on its own basis. Then we apply different mitigations depending on where it comes from.
You talked about the extra risk reduction. Is there a larger risk issue with Huawei than, say, Ericsson or Nokia?
Well, it's different risks, and one of the things we look for is
what are the different risks then for Huawei as opposed to, say, Ericsson?
So, for example, we look to see where the products are coming from, where they're being built, where the software is being written. In general, most of this equipment, it's not really a physical hardware issue. It's mostly software. And software right now is being written around the world, and it's the testing framework that needs to go with it as well that is one of the things we look for.
You're putting Huawei on the same level of security or risk-wise as, say, Nokia or Ericsson.
We would take it into account where we apply different mitigation. So some might be, for example, the lab testing program we have in place with a Canadian lab company that does additional testing. That's an additional mitigation measure that we put in place for the existing 4G network.
Let me ask you a couple of different questions. The minister earlier stated her comment, it's widely known that Zoom is insecure. If that's the case, how do you feel about so many government people, workers using Zoom, but caucuses, private caucus meetings, whether it's Conservatives, the Liberals, the NDP, the Bloc, using Zoom if it's widely known to be insecure?
Well, there are different ways you can. So, for example, Zoom bombing was a phenomenon we heard a lot about at the beginning of the COVID crisis. One of the things, for example, the use of the lobby, like we did here, unique code, but also passwords, not sharing those things, for example, is a way to minimize the number of people. But in terms of the communications itself, we've never assessed Zoom for the protection of, for example, sensitive communications like we would for what we call in the government protected B.
Should we not be doing that? Again, if we have our political parties, the governing Liberals doing their caucus meetings over Zoom, the opposition, the NDP, confidential government information?
One of the things is we've been working with the House of Commons to find a appropriate balance, unfortunately, with security. No one product does all the features we need, plus have all the security things we would be looking for. And it really is to strike a balance between user needs.
What's your level of inability to sleep at night over something like this? Is it sleep soundly, or you're up at night with the night terrors over lack of security for members of Parliament using the prescribed program from the House of Commons?
I'm very comfortable with using Zoom for this. I think the way we've worked with the House of Commons to set it up and mitigate it.
OGGO, I don't mean for committee work that's open to anyone viewing. I mean for private information such as caucus meetings or so perhaps cabinet meetings if they're doing that over Zoom.
So one of the things we are working with the House of Commons staff is to provide a solution for caucus meetings and also for electronic voting as well to make sure that we're adding additional layers of security. That is something we had been working with since the beginning, continuing to enhance security, but also maintain the usability. And I think that's something that we're working to strike a balance with the House of Commons. But we have a team stood up this is their full-time job to work with House of Commons to support you.
Okay. Just quickly, in your opening statement, you mentioned monitor and protect programs against cyber threats, including the CERB. What is the threat there? Duplicate programs or people hacking into CERB? Or the reason I asked, in the National Post article today, there was concern expressed people overseas could be applying. Is it a matter of ensuring the VPN servers are actually in Canada applying, or what are your concerns about it?
Predominantly, we were looking for anybody who would try to impersonate the government of Canada. So, for example, set up a CERB-like site that looks to fake out Canadian, pretending that it was CERB.
Your exact words were cyber threats, like against cyber threats. Mm-hmm. That's not a cyber threat of CERB. That's a phishing or a fraud threat. Perhaps it was just worded badly, or was that your intent?
No, it is a cyber threat because they're using that as part of phishing. They use it to lure a Canadian to reveal their private information or confidential information. But the second piece, though, we do look for is we look to make sure that we're ready to defend against denial of service attacks so that the site remains up and available for Canadians. That's something we work closely with our partners at Shared Services Canada.
Okay, real last quick question, I'm sure.
Unfortunately,
Mr.
Chair, we don't have it. We just don't have the time. We'll now go to Mr. McKinnon for 5 minutes, please.
Bonjour et rebonjour.
Good afternoon or good evening, and thank you for all those who are still with us and for your efforts. We've talked a lot about going back to work now, about the preparation for this, even though we don't know the dates yet for the return to work, the return to our offices. But the Government of Canada has spent a lot of time reviewing its model for the office of the future. Now, as far as technology is concerned, and here I'm talking about the availability of Wi-Fi internet and availability of the cloud and other tools. And my question is directed mostly to Mr. Glover. Could you address the technological side of the Office of the Future for the Public Service with the idea of going back to work after the COVID?
The short answer is, in order to be digitally enabled, you need to have access to digital tools. And that means in the office place, just like you trust when you use an electrical outlet, that it's going to work, we need to have wired access points that work, and we need wireless access points. We know and understand that increasingly those two things are a reality. People are moving around. And so that is what has been built into the new standard that we have worked with PSPC, and all new fit-ups have wired and wireless access points so that employees are able to function. It also allows us to deal with the changing security requirements. And then on top of that, the networks are changing and we're moving to what we call zero trust, so that it's anywhere, anytime, any device. We're able to make sure that public servants are able to work. In order to be digital, you need access to the tools. And so we need to make sure, like heat, like light, access, connectivity is there and is functional. It's not too slow, because then it doesn't work. It has to be of a quality and a security and an availability. And that's what's being built into the standard. And that's what we're working to establish for all new federal workplaces. Frankly, the harder part is the retrofit, going back into older existing buildings. But the technology is improving. We've sent a challenge to industry, and we're accelerating the work in that space as well.
Fantastic. One of the things I know your organization has spent a lot of time assisting with is a pilot project called GC Co-working. And for the benefit of colleagues, that is a pilot project where employees from different departments can, in fact, enter an office environment that is closer to their home, or when they're on the road, perhaps on the road, so they have access to all the technology tools and indeed security that is required. Can you talk a little bit about GC Co-working and the technology enablement that you have done there?
So essentially, Mr. Chair, the member's question is about a fundamental shift where right now, a lot of people feel they come into their office. They sit down at the same desk, the same phone. And these GC collaborating spaces are not that. It's a set of standard spaces that a public servant can come in, plug in and their tablet, and they can connect to their network, and their phone number pops up and they're able to function. So it doesn't require them to go to the same workplace. And the experience from employees that have moved into this space is exceptionally positive. It allows teams to self-organize, to meet where they need to. It allows people flexibility to be closer to home, to better manage the work-life challenges that they face. The feedback from employees as we stand up plans to return to the workplace, because we never really stopped working, so it's not return to work, but return to the workplace, is that those will be extremely important to provide them the flexibility that they will need if there are problems with daycare, school, and other things. So they're, I think, a great tool, and I suspect that the feedback from those pilots will be quite positive, and there'll be a move to accelerate those. There will obviously be, in this new world, some cleanliness and hygiene issues that we will have to sort through to make sure that that is done safely. But from a functionality point of view, that's the concept, that's the model, and that's the flexibility it provides employees and teams.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll now go to our final two interventions. These are 2.5-minute interventions, starting with Monsieur Bacheru Duval.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Earlier, or several times, it was said that the cloud was good for cybersecurity. I personally am not a computer security expert, but I was wondering, with this cloud data, do we have access to emails from a member of parliament or of a computer that are on the cloud, that are on servers with private companies?
So, Mr. Chair, in response to the member's question, cloud is, as he alluded to, just a large data center. It's an exceptionally large data center that is often multi-tenant and allows the vendor to be able to scale up. What is unique about the way the Government of Canada has approached cloud is that we have imposed our security requirements. As Mr. Jones has said, Protected B is an example. We have physical requirements that have to reside in Canada. They have physical security requirements. The employees have to be cleared. We are able to work with security partners to go in and physically audit those security requirements.
Ma question, c'est de savoir, monsieur.
Yes, but my question is to know that there is data that is housed in private servers. Is it done by the government, or is it government services or private actors?
It is the cloud services providers that are running those data centers, and that would include the data in there. But again, I must underscore that is done to the standards that we impose on them with respect to the storage and encryption of that data. That would include backups, the ability to restore, and who would be able to unencrypt that data.
Et toutes ces entreprises-là sont.
And all those businesses, are they all Canadian, or are they from other countries for those suppliers?
Very, very, very brief answer, please.
It is a mix. We have the large multinationals, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, to Canadian companies like ThinkOn. The key is they're subject to the same requirements. They must operate in Canada so that we are not subject to things like the Patriot Act and others. The data resides solely in Canada, and we have full ability to physically visit, inspect, and verify the security claims.
Thank you very much. My understanding, we'll go to our final 2.5-minute intervention. My understanding is, Mr. Green, you have ceded your time to Mr. McCauley. Is that correct?
I have. I'm keenly interested to see where he goes with it.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCauley. You have the final intervention at 2.5 minutes.
Thanks. Mr. Jones, just back to you. Again, to your opening remarks, it says, finally, it is important to note that the Government of Canada has a strong and valuable relationship with our international cyber partners. We share information which has significant impact on protecting our respective countries' safety and security. This goes back to Huawei. We're the only one of the Five Eyes that has not banned Huawei from our 5G or the major role. How will this affect us? Do we risk being excluded from sharing of vital information if we move ahead with something like Huawei?
Well, thank you for the question. One of the things that we've really been looking at is we're a net contributor. Because of our defense of the government, we contribute quite a bit of value to the cybersecurity ecosystem in the world, and our partners around the world value that. In fact, we're one of the top 1 or 2 contributors in a lot of things. So we do contribute quite a bit, and we get stuff back as well. And so we look to build on that and the expertise that we have, and continue to build the strong relationships. It's a relationship that's been built over 70 years.
Do we risk being shut out of such information for using Huawei when everyone else has banned Huawei for security reasons?
So we continue to work with our partners. That's a decision that the government will take into account when it makes its decision. For us,
so
we continue to see no change in our sharing.
Do you think this is going to be a political decision as opposed to a decision made by your department or an information provided by your department?
One of the things for us is we've seen no change in the sharing between our all of our international allies, including what we share with them all over on cybersecurity.
If we went to Huawei, you say you believe there'll be no change in sharing. We've heard the U.S. threaten to cut us out of information sharing if we go to Huawei. Is that not a concern for you?
I can't speak to what other countries have said. For us, we continue to build strong partnerships with our international partners, and that'll be part of
I know you
the
can't speak
decision.
for other. You can't speak for other countries. Is that not a concern for you as a Canadian dealing in your business that we will be shut out if we go against our allies' wishes and go to Huawei servers?
One of the things for me is to always show that we provide strong value to our allies, and hopefully they'll see that we have a really unique cybersecurity information that we share with them constantly. So,
thank you very much.
I'm dumbfounded. I'm absolutely dumbfounded.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of our witnesses who were here today. Witnesses from Shared Services Canada, the Treasury Board Secretariat, and of course the Communication Security Establishment. Your information and your testimony has been very, very helpful and informed. To Mr. Jones personally, I know that on a number of occasions people have talked about the fact that you may have some difficulty sleeping at night, particularly in your position. I would just point out to you, sir, that that's why God invented red wine. So perhaps take that into account. To the rest of you colleagues, we will meet again this Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I wish you in the intervening 3 or 4 days, you all keep healthy and safe, and we will see you on Friday. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye all. Thanks, Chair.